It's 2 a.m. You're lying in bed. The room is dark. The world is quiet. But your mind? Louder than ever. You replay the conversation from earlier, wondering if you said too much or not enough. You go over tomorrow's to-do list. Again. You imagine 100 futures, 100 outcomes, none of which feel safe. You flip the pillow. You breathe. You try to calm down, but your thoughts won't stop running, as if thinking more will finally make it all make sense. But here's the strange thing. You weren't always like this. There was a time when your mind felt lighter, when you could just be, without running mental marathons. So what happened? Why is it that when the outside world goes quiet, the inside world grows louder? Why does peace feel unfamiliar and silence feel unsafe? In this episode, we're going to explore why we overthink, not just what it is, but what it's trying to protect us from. We'll uncover the brain's obsession with control, how fear and uncertainty fuel the loop, and what overthinking is really trying to avoid. Because maybe the goal isn't to think less. Maybe it's to understand more, so you can finally give your mind permission to rest. Overthinking is not just a bad habit. We often treat overthinking like a nuisance, a mental itch, something to get over or shut down. People say, just stop thinking about it. You're overreacting. You're making it worse than it is. But here's the truth most people miss. Overthinking is not the problem. It's the symptom, the surface-level expression of something deeper, your need to feel safe. When your brain doesn't have clarity, it tries to create it. When it doesn't have control, it simulates it by running mental simulations over and over again. You reanalyze the argument, not because you enjoy suffering, but because your mind is trying to prevent it from happening again. You obsess over that email, not because you're dramatic, but because your brain is trying to protect your sense of belonging, your image, your safety. Overthinking is your mind's way of saying, I'm scared, I'm unsure, I need to prepare. It's not just a habit, it's a defense mechanism. In fact, it's often born from intelligence. People who overthink tend to be sensitive, reflective, self-aware. But when those strengths get hijacked by anxiety or unprocessed emotion, they become traps, loops with no off switch. And here's where it gets tricky. Overthinking can feel productive. It feels like you're doing something, solving, managing, staying ahead. But in reality, you're just exhausting yourself in place. Like pedaling a bike that's stuck on a treadmill. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. So maybe the question isn't, why do I overthink so much? Maybe it's, what am I really trying to protect? What do I not feel safe enough to let go of? Because the goal isn't to silence your thoughts, it's to understand what they're trying to guard. And when you start listening, really listening, you'll realize your overthinking doesn't make you broken. It means you care. It means you're afraid. And most of all, it means your mind is doing the best it can with the tools it was given. But you don't have to stay there. You can give it new tools. You can teach it how to rest. Your brain is wired for threat detection. Your brain has one primary job: keep you alive. And to do that, it scans for threats constantly. Not just physical threats, but emotional, social, psychological ones too. Back when we lived in tribes, being cast out wasn't just sad, it was fatal. So our brains evolved to become vigilant, to anticipate danger before it happened, to imagine every worst-case scenario so we'd be ready just in case. Fast forward to now. There are no predators hiding in the bushes, but your brain still behaves as if one wrong word, one wrong move, one wrong expression might cost you everything. So when your boss pauses before replying, Your brain says, threat. When someone forgets to text back, your brain says, rejection. When you make a small mistake, your brain says, prepare for disaster. And how does it prepare? By thinking, endlessly, relentlessly. Overthinking is your brain running emergency drills, even when there's no fire. It's not trying to torment you. It's trying to protect you. It just doesn't know when to stop, because your brain is more comfortable in familiar discomfort than in unfamiliar calm. Silence feels unsafe. Peace feels suspicious. And uncertainty? That's the biggest threat of all. So when the future is unclear, your brain fills in the blanks, usually with fear. And that's when the loop begins. What if? What then? What now? What did I miss? What if I can't fix it? What if they leave? What if I was wrong? What if I'm not enough? It's exhausting. But from your brain's perspective, it's doing its job. It's just that the world you live in today requires a different kind of safety. One that doesn't come from predicting disaster, but from trusting that you can face what comes. And that shift doesn't happen in your brain alone. It happens in your nervous system, in how your body feels, in how you learn to recognize that being calm is not the same as being vulnerable. So the next time your thoughts start spiraling, pause and remind yourself, this is not danger, this is discomfort, and I can sit with this. You don't have to fight your brain, you just have to retrain it, gently, consistently, and with compassion. The illusion of solving by thinking. Overthinking often feels helpful, like you're doing something, fixing, preparing, being responsible. You tell yourself, if I just think through this one more time, maybe I'll feel better. If I explore every possible angle, I'll avoid failure. If I find the perfect response, the perfect timing, the perfect plan. But here's the hard truth. You're not solving the problem. You're replaying it, over and over, in different costumes. With different fears, you might change the details, but the core loop is always the same. Anxiety, thinking, temporary relief, more anxiety. Because overthinking gives you the illusion of progress while keeping you stuck in place. It's like stirring muddy water. You're doing something, but the water only gets murkier. You're not moving forward. You're just wearing yourself out. And here's why it happens. Your brain craves resolution. It hates ambiguity. It wants closure, clarity, control. But life rarely gives you clean answers, especially not in the moment. So your mind does what it knows best. It loops, not because it's effective, but because it's familiar. And the longer you stay in the loop, the more it feels like leaving the loop would be irresponsible. As if you're giving up if you stop analyzing. As if pausing the thoughts means something bad might happen. But here's the paradox. Most of what you're overthinking can't be solved by more thinking. It can only be solved by decision, action, or acceptance. You don't need to rethink the conversation. You need to forgive yourself. You don't need to predict every outcome. You need to trust your capacity to respond. You don't need to rehearse every scenario. You need to rest. Thinking is not the enemy, but unproductive thinking disguised as problem solving, that's where the trap lives. So the next time your mind says, let's go over it one more time, ask instead, will this move me forward or just keep me busy? Sometimes the most powerful answer is not another layer of thought. It's permission to stop looking for one. What are you really afraid of? Let's be honest. Overthinking isn't just about solving a problem. It's about avoiding a feeling. We don't spiral because we enjoy it. We spiral because it's safer than sitting still and letting ourselves feel what's underneath. Sometimes what we're really afraid of isn't the outcome, it's the emotion that might come with it. The guilt of saying the wrong thing, the shame of not being perfect, the grief of letting go, the fear of being misunderstood, unloved, unseen. So we think instead. We analyze, reanalyze, strategize. Not because it helps, but because it distracts us from feeling too much, too deeply, too vulnerably. We try to outthink pain, but pain doesn't go away when ignored. It waits, and over time, the more we avoid feeling, the more our thoughts multiply. Not because the situation got worse, but because the emotional tension inside us never got released. It's like keeping a beach ball underwater. You can hold it down for a while, but eventually it pops up, harder, faster, unexpected. That's what happens when we try to solve emotions with logic. Your thoughts are not the enemy, but they can become a barrier when they prevent you from sitting with what's real. Because the truth is, you can't think your way through sadness. You can't logic your way out of shame. You can't overanalyze your way into peace. You have to feel your way there, gently, patiently, honestly. So the next time your thoughts won't stop, ask yourself, what emotion am I trying not to feel right now? You might be surprised by the answer, and if you're brave enough to stay with it, even for a few minutes, you might just notice the thoughts begin to soften. Because maybe they never needed fixing. They just needed your attention, not in your head, but in your heart. The hidden cost of constant analysis. Overthinking doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't scream or crash or explode. It just erodes, quietly, slowly, deeply. It steals your sleep, not with nightmares, but with the endless replays of real-life moments that won't stop looping. It steals your decisions, not by blocking options, but by giving you too many. So you stall, you hesitate, you let opportunities pass because you're still trying to make the perfect choice. It steals your presence. You're at dinner, but you're not really there. You're smiling, but you're stuck in your head. You're living, but you're only half alive. And perhaps the worst part is, it convinces you that this is just how you are, that this is your personality, that you're the overthinker, and that peace just isn't meant for you. But it is. It always has been. You just haven't had the tools, or the space, or the safety, yet. Because constant analysis doesn't just exhaust your mind, it disconnects you from your intuition. You start to second-guess every impulse, doubt every decision, triple-check what your gut already knew. And when you lose trust in yourself, you become dependent on reassurance, on over-preparing, on endless mental rehearsals that never quite make you feel ready. You keep thinking, hoping that one day, one thought will finally set you free. But overthinking won't give you freedom. It will only give you more questions, more loops, more exhaustion. Real freedom begins not when you figure it all out, but when you finally say, I don't need to. When you allow yourself to feel uncertain and still move, to feel anxious and still rest, to not know what's next and still live now. Because peace isn't the absence of thought. It's the quiet confidence that not every thought needs your attention. How to step out of the loop. You can't always stop your thoughts, but you can change your relationship with them. That's the first step. Because the goal isn't to control your mind, it's to reclaim space inside it. Here are 5 practices, gentle but powerful, that can help you step out of the overthinking loop. 1. Name it for what it is. The moment you notice yourself spiraling, say to yourself, "This is overthinking, not failure, not weakness, not a sign that something's wrong. Just a signal that your mind is trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows how." Naming it creates space. It puts you in the observer's seat, not the victim's. 2. Externalize the thought. Overthinking thrives in silence. In your head, it feels infinite. But the moment you write it down, it becomes finite, containable, real. Try this. Open a journal or blank doc. Write, "What am I afraid of right now?" Let it pour out. No edits, no filter. You're not looking for solutions yet. You're just letting the mind empty itself, like opening a valve to release pressure. 3. Move the body to anchor the mind. When thoughts are loud, returning to your body is like turning down the volume. Take a walk. Shake out your hands. Do 30 seconds of breath work. Feel your feet press into the floor. These are not distractions. They're anchors. They remind your nervous system that you're here, now, and safe. 4. Ask a grounding question. Instead of letting your mind run wild, offer it a pattern break. Try asking, "Is this thought helping me right now? What's one thing I actually can control? What would I tell a friend feeling this exact way?" These questions don't dismiss your thoughts. They redirect them, gently, wisely. 5. Practice micro-surrender. Sometimes you don't need a plan. You need permission. Permission to pause, to say, "I don't have to solve this right now. I trust that clarity will come later. I can rest even if my mind isn't perfect yet." Overthinking says, "You're not ready." Surrender says, "Maybe you never will be, and that's okay." Because most breakthroughs don't come from over-effort. They come when you finally stop trying to force them. You don't have to do all of these at once. Start with one. Breathe into it. Make it yours. Because the way out of the loop isn't force. It's awareness. It's practice. It's self-trust, rebuilt one small moment at a time. Your mind doesn't want silence. It wants safety. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel uncomfortable? You finally get a moment to rest, but instead of peace, your thoughts get louder. You try to meditate, but instead of calm, your anxiety spikes. You sit still, but your mind starts running. Why? Because silence isn't automatically soothing. Not if your mind has been taught that stillness is where danger lives. For many of us, silence was never associated with safety. It was associated with being ignored, feeling unseen, waiting for the other shoe to drop, emotional abandonment. So when life finally quiets down, your nervous system doesn't relax. It panics. It goes, "Something's wrong. I must have missed something." Prepare, protect, fix. But here's the truth. Your mind doesn't actually fear silence. It fears what silence might reveal. The emotions you've avoided, the truths you've postponed, the vulnerability you've buried. And because those feelings were never held safely in the past, your mind now uses thinking to avoid ever meeting them again. Overthinking is your brain's attempt to create safety by staying busy. But what it really needs is permission to slow down and to discover through experience that rest is not dangerous, that stillness doesn't mean neglect, that quiet doesn't equal abandonment. This is how healing begins, not by forcing silence, but by building safety inside it, by showing your mind again and again that you are here now, you are present, and nothing bad will happen if you take a breath and let go. Because safety isn't a place you arrive at, it's a feeling you learn to create. And when your mind finally feels safe, it will stop screaming, it will soften, it will listen, and sometimes it will rest. Maybe you've been trying so hard to think your way into peace, replaying, reworking, reanalyzing, as if clarity will come if you just try a little harder. But what if clarity doesn't come from thinking more? What if it comes from thinking less urgently? What if the peace you're looking for doesn't require answers, just your willingness to pause the questions? Because maybe you don't need to figure it all out right now. Maybe you don't need the perfect plan, or the airtight explanation, or the constant mental rehearsals. Maybe you just need to let go of the idea that thinking equals safety, to breathe, to trust, to allow space for your mind to soften. Because the answers you're chasing might not live in thought. They might live in experience, in movement, in rest, in connection, in being, not fixing. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing because your mind is loud. You are simply human, learning to live in a world that often confuses doing with being ready. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not think harder, but feel softer. So if you're tired, rest. If your thoughts are loud, listen gently. And if you don't know what comes next, just take the next breath. Because maybe peace doesn't begin with a solved mind, but with a kind one.